In the middle of a quiet, sunny park, a girl in a wheelchair was painting. She was in her own little world, smiling softly as her loyal German shepherd, who used to be a police dog, lay beside her. It should have been a peaceful day. It should have been safe until they showed up. Three rich boys with loud laughter, expensive clothes, and mean smirks stopped right in front of her. At first, she didn't even look up, but their shadows fell over her art, and everything changed. The girl's smile went away as the boys surrounded her. They pushed her wheelchair. They crushed her pencils under their shoes, laughing and making fun of her wheelchair, her art, and everything she loved. And when her police-trained dog tried to protect her, one boy did something terrible. He kicked the dog so hard the entire park went silent. The dog fell down. The girl screamed, and the boys laughed. But what they didn't know was that someone else had seen everything. An off-duty police officer was already running toward them. What happened next left the entire park shocked. Stay with us because this amazing story will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The sun painted the park in soft gold that morning, warming the grass and making the lake sparkle like tiny diamonds. Families relaxed on picnic blankets, children chased bubbles, and joggers ran slowly between the trees. Among all the laughter and weekend talking, a quiet corner beneath an oak tree had a very different kind of peace. Emma sat in her wheelchair with a sketchbook balanced on her lap. Her pencil moved gently, capturing the world around her with soft strokes. Art was her escape. It was the one thing that made her feel free, beyond her wheels, beyond her limitations, beyond the sideways looks she often got. And right beside her lay Shadow, her loyal German shepherd, stretched out calmly with his head resting near her wheels. His eyes followed her every movement. His ears listened to every passing sound. To him, she wasn't the girl in the wheelchair. She was his person, his mission, his whole world. Shadow was no ordinary dog. Even though he was retired, the posture, the discipline, and the quiet strength of a former police K-9 lived in his bones. Whenever Emma moved, he lifted his head instantly, ready to help her however she needed. Together, they were a team built through hardship, recovery, and silent trust. Emma brushed a strand of hair behind her ear as she finished shading a tree in her drawing. "What do you think, boy?" she whispered. Shadow thumped his tail softly against the grass. She smiled. But peace never lasts long when cruelty is nearby. A group of teenagers, three boys dressed in expensive shirts, designer sneakers, and the kind of confidence that only came from privilege, walked toward the open field. Their laughter was loud and exaggerated, the type people use when they want attention. The tallest boy noticed Emma first. He nudged his friends, smirking. "Look at that," he said under his breath. "Art class in the grass." His friends followed his look, spotting Emma's wheelchair before they even saw her face. Something in their expressions changed. Curiosity turned into amusement. Amusement twisted into something darker. Emma didn't notice them yet. She continued sketching, completely absorbed in her drawing. Shadow noticed first. His ears flicked upward. His muscles tightened just slightly, a subtle sign that something had changed in the environment. The boys slowed down. One whispered, "Want to say hi?" Another snorted, "Yeah," something like that. Their footsteps grew closer. Shadow rose to his feet. Emma finally looked up, and the warm, peaceful world around her suddenly felt much colder. The three boys stopped just a few feet from Emma. Their shadows fell across her sketchbook like a sudden eclipse. Emma pulled the book closer to her chest without thinking. Her fingers tightened around the pencil. She didn't know them, but she could feel the sharpness in their energy, the kind of presence that doesn't mean well. Shadow stood stiff beside her, tail low, eyes locked onto the boys. A quiet warning rumble vibrated in his chest, but the teenagers either didn't hear it or didn't care. The tallest boy stepped forward first. He wore a designer watch, too shiny for a casual day in the park, the type of accessory that screamed money and arrogance. "Hey," he said, bending slightly to look at her drawing. "What are you making there?" "A masterpiece." His voice dripped with fake encouragement. Emma didn't respond. She kept her eyes on her sketchbook, hoping they would just walk away. They didn't. "Whoa, look at this," another boy said, snatching the pencil right out of her hand. Emma gasped, startled. "Hey, please give that back," she said softly. But her quiet tone only encouraged them. The boy twirled the pencil between his fingers dramatically. "Relax. We're just admiring your art." He lifted her sketchbook with his other hand before she could stop him. "No." Emma reached forward, but her limited mobility made the movement slow. The boy pulled the sketchbook out of reach easily. The pages fluttered as he flipped through them carelessly. "Guys, check this out," he said with a smirk. "She draws trees and ducks." "How cute." His friends laughed. Emma's cheeks burned. Her drawings weren't just doodles. They were her safe place, the one thing she felt she was good at. Seeing them handled like trash made her stomach knot. Shadow barked sharply, stepping between Emma and the boys. His teeth showed slightly, not aggressive but protective. A clear warning, enough. "Whoa, easy there, Mutt," the tall boy said, backing up half a step. Then he laughed again, turning to his friends. "Is this your bodyguard?" Emma swallowed hard. "Please, just give it back," she whispered. The boy rolled his eyes. "Fine. Catch." He tossed the sketchbook toward her hard. It hit the ground, pages bending, smearing the soft charcoal she had spent an hour blending. Emma flinched as the book bounced against her wheel. Shadow immediately stepped over it, guarding it with his body. Oh, one boy mocked. "Look at the hero dog protecting the little artist." The tallest one nudged his friend. "Come on, let's have some fun." Emma's pulse quickened. She wheeled herself back without thinking, her hands trembling. She looked around desperately, but in that moment, the park felt too big and too empty. No one noticed. No one stepped in. The boys smirked at each other, exchanging a silent agreement. The cruel jokes were only their beginning. The boys circled Emma like vultures closing in on wounded prey. Their smirking faces hovered too close, blocking out the sunlight. Emma gripped the wheels of her chair tightly, her breath catching in her throat. She wanted to scream for help, but her voice felt locked inside her chest. "Come on," one boy taunted, leaning forward. "Show us a smile. We're just hanging out." His tone was playful, but his eyes weren't. The tall boy moved behind her unexpectedly, placing his hands on the handles of her wheelchair. Emma stiffened. Please don't move me." "Oh, relax," he laughed. "We're just giving you a tour of the park." Before she could react, he shoved the wheelchair forward. Emma's stomach lurched as the wheels rolled too fast, bouncing over uneven grass. Her sketchbook nearly slipped from her lap. Shadow barked frantically, chasing after them, trying to keep up. "Stop. Please stop," Emma cried, but the boys only laughed harder. They spun her around in a wide circle, making her dizzy. The world blurred. Trees, sky, sunlight. Everything smeared together like a shaken watercolor painting. Emma clutched her armrests, terrified the wheelchair would tip. Shadow sprinted alongside her, barking louder now, panic rising in his chest. He nudged her leg with his nose, trying desperately to stabilize the chair. "Look, your dog's freaking out," one boy shouted between laughs. "Maybe he wants to turn," another sneered. The tall boy suddenly stopped the wheelchair, causing Emma to jolt forward. Her breath hitched as the sudden halt sent pain shooting through her lower back. "Oops," he said casually. "Did that hurt?" Emma didn't answer. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back. She refused to give them that satisfaction. The boy who had taken her pencil earlier stepped in front of her and snapped his fingers inches for Shadow's face. "Sit, dog. Sit." Shadow growled, a deep, wounded sound. "Oh, he thinks he's scary," the boy smirked. "Look at him shaking." Shadow wasn't shaking from fear. He was shaking from the effort to hold himself back. Emma reached for his collar with trembling fingers. "Shadow, it's okay," she whispered, though nothing about this moment felt okay. One boy suddenly leaned down and flicked her sketchbook off her lap. It landed face down in the dirt. Emma gasped. Shadow lunged to retrieve it. And that was the moment the boy's cruelty shifted from mocking to dangerous. The rich kids weren't done. They were only getting started. Shadow reached the fallen sketchbook first, nudging it gently with his nose as if trying to check whether Emma's artwork was hurt the way she was. His body curved protectively around it, his stance low, his eyes locked onto the boys with a warning sharp enough to slice through the air. But the teenagers didn't back down. "Look at him," the tall boy scoffed, stepping closer with swaggering confidence, guarding her little coloring book. Shadow's growl deepened. His muscles tensed, ready to shield Emma at any cost. Even in retirement, his instincts were razor sharp. This wasn't playtime. This was threat assessment. Emma leaned forward, voice trembling. "Please, just leave us alone." The boy rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on. We're just messing around. If your dog can't handle it, maybe you shouldn't be in public." The second boy moved to Shadow's side and gave him a light shove with his foot. "Seriously, dude, calm down." Shadow didn't attack, didn't bite. He simply stood his ground, refusing to budge even an inch away from Emma's belongings. His lips curled, teeth showing just enough to say, "Don't touch her. Don't touch anything of hers." But the boys saw that restraint as weakness. "See," one of them laughed. "He's all bark." The tall boy snickered. "Let's get him out of the way." Before Emma could react, he stepped forward and shoved Shadow harder, this time aiming to push him aside. Shadow stumbled slightly, but dug his paws into the ground, unwilling to yield. Emma gasped. "Stop! Don't touch him." Her voice cracked, but the boys didn't care. Shadow moved in front of her wheelchair again, standing taller, head raised, tail low but firm. Emma placed a trembling hand on his back, feeling the vibration of his growl tick through her fingers. "It's okay, boy," she whispered, her voice strained. "Just stay with me." The third boy, silent until now, suddenly darted forward and snatched the sketchbook from the ground, yanking it from beneath Shadow's paw. Shadow lunged instinctively, barking fiercely. But the boy jumped back with a startled laugh. "Oh man, he almost got me," he shouted. They erupted into laughter again, throwing the sketchbook back and forth like a cruel game of keep away. The pages bent. The cover tore slightly. Every toss made Emma flinch, her hands gripping her wheels until her knuckles turned white. Shadow barked louder, running helplessly between them, trying to retrieve the book. He was fast, but the boys were deliberately teasing him, waving it just out of reach. Then one boy leaned down near Emma's face. "You want it back?" he whispered mockingly. "Tell your dog to stop acting like a psycho." Emma stared at him, fear tightening every muscle in her body. Shadow's barks grew frantic. The boys' smirks grew wider. A storm was building, and they were about to push it too far. The sketchbook slipped from the boy's hand mid-toss, landing near Emma's wheelchair with a soft thud. For one brief moment, Shadow saw an opening. He darted forward, grabbing the torn corner of the book delicately between his teeth, trying to return it to Emma the way he had done countless times before during her therapy sessions. But the tall boy reacted instantly. "Oh, no you don't," he snapped, stepping toward the dog with a burst of irritation. "You're not the boss here." Shadow lowered his head protectively over the sketchbook, ears pinned back, a desperate growl rumbling from deep within his chest. His body trembled, not from fear, but from the effort of holding himself together while defending the only girl he loved most in the world. Emma stretched her hand out toward him. "Shadow, it's okay. Come here." He tried. He wanted nothing more than to retreat to Emma's side. But the boys closed in again, forming a half circle around him, their faces twisted with cruel entertainment. "What's his problem?" one boy muttered. "He thinks he's some kind of hero," another said with a smirk. The tall boy's expression hardened. "Let's teach him to stop growling." Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. "Don't you dare." But her words were cut short by the tall boy's sudden movement. He raised his leg and kicked Shadow brutally in the ribs. Emma screamed. Shadow yelped. A sound so sharp, so painful, it sliced through the entire park like a broken siren. His body folded sideways, legs collapsing beneath him as he hit the ground with a dull, devastating thud. The sketchbook slipped from his mouth and fluttered onto the dirt. For a moment, time froze. Emma's breath shattered into sobs. "Shadow! Shadow! No!" Her hands shook uncontrollably as she tried to wheel herself closer, but the uneven grass made the wheels drag. She pushed harder, frantic, terrified. Shadow whimpered, struggling to lift his head. Pain radiated through his body, making even the smallest movement agonizing. His chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths. The boy stepped back, suddenly unsure, the reality of what they had done settling into the silence. "Dude, I didn't mean to kick him that hard," one of them whispered. "Whatever," the tall boy muttered, though his voice carried a tremor of guilt he couldn't fully hide. He was acting crazy. Emma finally reached Shadow. She dropped her hands to the ground, leaning over him, tears streaming freely. "I'm here, boy. I'm right here," she whispered brokenly, touching his fur as gently as she could. The dog nudged his head toward her fingers, trying to reassure her even while he lay trembling. A small crowd of bystanders began to gather, slow at first, then faster as the shock rippled outward. "Did that kid just kick a dog?" someone whispered. "I think the girl can't move properly. Look at her wheelchair," another murmured. Phones were lifted. Voices swelled. Shame flickered across the boys' faces. But it was far too late, because in the distance, a uniformed figure had stopped jogging. He turned. He saw the scene, and his face darkened with fury. Officer Grant was already on his way. Officer Grant had been patrolling the far side of the park, enjoying one of the few quiet mornings he ever got on duty. Birds chirped in the trees. A fountain bubbled nearby. The peaceful hum of families enjoying their day made the world feel calm for once. Then he heard it, a scream, not loud but sharp, not playful but desperate. He froze mid-step. His training kicked in before his thoughts could. His eyes swept the area, scanning for the source. And then he heard something even worse, an agonizing, broken yelp. A dog's cry, one filled with pain. Grant's chest tightened. "That's not right," he muttered. He started walking, briskly at first, then faster, until his walk became a jog. As he rounded a row of bushes, the scene snapped into full view, and his jaw clenched instantly. A girl in a wheelchair, kneeling over a trembling German shepherd. 3 teenage boys standing nearby, their posture shifting between guilt and defiance. A scattered sketchbook on the ground, and a look on the dog's face, pain mixed with unwavering loyalty, hit Grant like a punch. His pace quickened. People around the scene were whispering, some recording, others backing away in discomfort. No one dared to step closer. No one except Emma, who was desperately stroking Shadow's fur with shaking hands. The boy in the designer shirt took a small step back when he saw Grant approaching. "Oh, we didn't." Grant cut through them with his stare alone. "Don't speak," he said, his voice calm but carrying a dangerous edge. "Not one of you says a word until I understand what happened here." The boy swallowed hard. Grant already knew. He just needed confirmation. The boy sighed sharply. "It's Blake. Blake Turner." A ripple ran through the crowd. A few parents exchanged looks. Grant's jaw tightened. "Turner? As in Councilman Turner's son?" Blake swallowed. "Yeah. So what?" The "so what" was exactly the problem. Grant inhaled slowly, steadying his temper. "I remember your father bringing you to the station last year regarding a bullying complaint at school." Blake's face froze. One of his friends whispered under his breath, "Dude, you said that got dropped." "It did," Blake snapped. "Dad handled it." Handled it, covered it, silenced it. Grant's expression hardened. "A disabled student reported you for tormenting him, pushing him, mocking his limp." Emma's breath hitched. The pieces clicked painfully. Blake looked away, guilt flickering across his face for the first time, quick, unsteady, but real. Grant continued, his voice low but carrying the weight of truth. "Your school counselor filed a formal report. Do you know why it disappeared?" Blake's jaw clenched. "My dad said kids exaggerate." "No," Grant said sharply. "Your dad said power fixes things." Blake said nothing. He couldn't. One of the bystanders murmured, "So he's done this before." Another whispered, "Poor girl. She didn't stand a chance." Grant folded his arms. "This isn't a childish prank, Blake. This is a pattern, a dangerous one. First, a student with mobility issues." He pointed at Emma. "Now a girl in a wheelchair." Blake's voice cracked. I didn't mean," Grant cut him off. "Didn't mean, Blake? You pushed her chair. You laughed at her pain. And when her dog protected her, you kicked him. Blake's lips trembled slightly, but his friends stepped back from him, distancing themselves as the truth settled like a dark cloud. Grant exhaled slowly. I'm filing a full report. This time, no one is sweeping it under a rug. Blake lowered his head. For the first time, his privilege couldn't save him, and everyone watching knew it. As the tension settled over the park, Officer Grant knelt beside Emma's wheelchair again. He could see the fear still trembling in her hands. But he also saw something else, a kind of quiet resilience, a strength that didn't come from muscles but from surviving things most adults never could. Emma, he said softly, is there someone we should call for you? Emma shook her head, wiping her eyes with the corner of her sleeve. My mom's at work. She can't leave, and she worries too much already. Grant nodded gently. I understand. You're safe here, okay. But as he spoke, he noticed the way she held on to Shadow. Not just like a pet, not just like a companion, but like he was a part of her, a piece of her heart she couldn't survive without. He lowered his voice. You and Shadow been together a long time. Emma looked down at the trembling dog, her fingers brushing his fur with practiced tenderness. 3 years, she whispered. He saved my life. Grant listened quietly. Emma took a shaky breath. I wasn't always in a wheelchair. 3 years ago, I was in a car accident. Wrong place, wrong time. She paused, her voice thinning. I was stuck under the dashboard. I couldn't move. I remember hearing metal creak, fire, and I thought, her voice cracked. Shadow nudged her hand weakly, sensing her distress. Emma continued. The firefighters couldn't reach me. The door was crushed. But Shadow, he was part of the K-9 search and rescue team back then. He crawled inside through a tiny gap no one else could fit through. Grant's eyes widened. He found you. Emma nodded. He stayed with me the whole time. He put his weight on the broken metal so it wouldn't collapse. He kept me warm until they could cut the door open. Her voice softened with awe, and he wouldn't leave. Even when they tried to carry me out, he growled at them because he thought they were hurting me. Several bystanders wiped their eyes. Even Grant swallowed hard. Emma added softly. When I woke up in the hospital, he was sitting beside my bed. Every day, every hour. She smiled tearfully. They said he refused to eat until he saw me awake. Shadow blinked slowly, his eyes fixed on her with a love words could never capture. Emma's voice grew quieter. When my legs stopped working, when I thought everything was over, he made me feel safe again. He made me feel worth something. She stroked his fur. I learned to draw because it helped me forget the pain, and he sat with me through every sketch. Grant's chest tightened. The crowd felt it too. This wasn't just a girl and her dog. This was a lifeline. Emma looked at the boys, her voice trembling but firm. He saved me when I couldn't save myself. He's not just my dog. She placed a trembling hand on Shadow's chest. He's my reason to keep going. Officer Grant stood slowly, the weight of Emma's story settling deep in his chest. He looked from the trembling girl to the injured dog, then to the 3 boys, who suddenly seemed far smaller, far younger, and far more cowardly than they had minutes ago. All right, Grant said, his voice low but commanding. It's time this ends. The boys stiffened. He pointed at them one by one. You 3 aren't walking away from this. Not today. The shortest boy began shaking. Officer, please. Our parents. Grant raised a hand sharply. Your parents are about to hear the full truth. Every second of it. He pulled out his phone and dialed the first number from the ID information dispatch had sent. After a brief exchange, he said, This is Officer Grant. I have your son detained for assault on a disabled minor and injury to a service K-9. I suggest you come down to Riverside Park immediately. Gasps erupted from the crowd. One by one, he repeated the call for all 3 families. Then he turned back to the boys. Your parents are on their way, and they will watch the videos. They will hear the witnesses, and I will personally file the report. Blake's face turned white. You can't do that. My dad. Yes, Grant said sharply. I can and I will. Your father can't hide this. Not anymore. Blake lowered his head. His arrogance was gone, finally replaced by reality. At that moment, a vet technician and an animal rescue officer jogged across the field carrying a stretcher. Officer Grant, one called. Right here, he replied, waving them forward. The crowd parted. Emma squeezed Shadow's paw gently. "You're okay, boy. Help is here." The vet knelt beside Shadow. "Easy, hero. We've got you." Shadow whimpered, but didn't resist as they slid a support panel beneath him. Emma held her breath until he was safely lifted onto the stretcher. Grant turned to her, his expression soft. "Emma, you'll ride with them. I'll follow behind." She nodded, wiping fresh tears as Shadow was carried toward the van. The crowd stepped aside respectfully. Some people clapped quietly. Others whispered, "Good dog. Brave boy." Grant faced the boys one last time. "You three will stay here until your parents arrive. Do not move." None of them dared. Grant walked beside the stretcher, his voice low, full of restrained fury. Hurting a dog like Shadow isn't a mistake. It's a choice. He looked back at the boys. And choices have consequences. For the first time, the boys believed him. The animal rescue van's back door swung open, revealing a small but advanced mobile treatment bay. Stainless steel counters, oxygen tanks, soft padded mats. Everything ready for emergencies. Emma's heart pounded as the vet team gently slid Shadow inside, securing the stretcher to prevent further injury. "Emma, come on," Officer Grant said softly, helping her maneuver her wheelchair up the small ramp. "He needs you with him." Emma nodded quickly, tears blurring her vision. She wheeled herself closer until she was right beside Shadow. His chest rose and fell unevenly, each breath a painful reminder of what he had endured. But when Emma touched his paw, his tail gave a faint, trembling wag. "He's fighting," she whispered. "He always fights." The lead vet, a woman with calm eyes and steady hands, knelt beside the stretcher. "We're going to check his ribs first," she explained gently. "It looks like he took a direct impact." Emma swallowed hard. Is he going to be okay?" The vet didn't lie. She didn't sugarcoat, but she didn't frighten her either. "He's strong, very strong, and dogs like Shadow don't give up easily." She placed a stethoscope on Shadow's chest, listening. "His heartbeat is steady but strained. We'll stabilize him, give him pain relief, and get him x-rayed at the clinic." Emma pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to steady her breathing. Shadow turned his head slightly toward her, the smallest movement, but enough to send a fresh wave of tears down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry they hurt you." Shadow blinked slowly, his eyes soft, full of trust, not blame. The vet inserted in 4-line gently. Shadow whimpered, but Emma placed her hand on his neck. "You're okay, boy. I'm here." Grant stood at the doorway, watching the scene with a heavy heart. He'd seen injured canines before, but this was different. This wasn't a police call gone wrong. This wasn't a dangerous operation. This was cruelty, pure, needless cruelty. But there was something else, a bond between Emma and Shadow, so profound it radiated through the cramped treatment bay like a living force. When the four-drip began, Shadow relaxed slightly. Emma leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. "You saved me once," she whispered. "Please just hold on a little longer." Shadow's breathing steadied just a bit. The vet nodded. "He's responding. That's a good sign." Grant finally spoke, voice soft but firm. "He's a fighter, Emma, just like you." The van doors closed gently. Shadow's battle had begun, and Emma refused to leave his side. The vet clinic's waiting room smelled faintly of disinfectant and lavender, two scents Emma had grown familiar with over the years. But today, they felt different. Today, they felt heavy. Emma sat in her wheelchair near the treatment doors, staring at the floor, her hands clasped tightly together. Officer Grant sat beside her, quietly keeping watch. He didn't try to fill the silence. He simply waited with her, solid, steady, unwavering. Minutes passed, then an hour. Finally, the treatment room door opened. The vet stepped out, her expression gentle. Emma's heart clenched. "Is he?" A soft smile touched the vet's lips. "He's stable." Emma gasped, tears flooding instantly. Can I see him?" "Of course." Grant helped her wheel forward, and the vet guided them into the room. Shadow lay on a padded bed, bandaged ribs rising and falling slowly but steadily. His eyes blinked open when he heard her voice. Emma broke into tears. "Shadow." He lifted his head, just an inch, just enough to nuzzle her hand. Weak but alive. Hurt but fighting. Grant let out a long breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Good boy," he murmured. "That's a good, strong boy." Emma stroked Shadow's fur. "I knew you'd stay with me," she whispered. "You always do." The vet smiled. "He'll need rest, but he'll recover. He's tougher than he looks." Emma laughed softly through her tears. "He's tougher than all of us." Just then, a nurse stepped in holding a clipboard. "Officer Grant, the parents of the boys have arrived. They're in the front lobby." Grant straightened, jaw firm. "I'll handle it." Emma looked up at him. "Officer, thank you." He placed a hand on the back of her wheelchair. "I'm just doing what's right, Emma. You and Shadow deserve that." Grant stepped out to the lobby, where 3 sets of angry, embarrassed, and defensive parents waited. Their sons stood behind them, heads bowed, no longer arrogant, just terrified. Grant didn't sugarcoat a single detail. He explained the assault, the bullying, the cruelty, the injury to a decorated service canine, the witnesses, the recordings. And finally, he showed them Shadow's tag. The room fell silent. One father covered his face. One mother burst into tears. Another shook her head in disbelief. Grant ended firmly. "Your children will face consequences, real ones. They will learn empathy, or the world will teach it to them the hard way." There was no arguing, no excuses. Justice had finally found them. Back in the treatment room, Emma held Shadow's paw as he drifted into a medicated sleep. She smiled softly, whispering, "You're my hero every single day." Officer Grant returned minutes later, leaning against the doorframe with a gentle smile. "It's handled," he said quietly. Emma wiped her eyes. "Thank you." Grant nodded. "No, thank him." He motioned to Shadow. He stood up for what was right, even when he was outnumbered. Emma looked at her dog with tearful pride. And that became the story's message, spoken not in words, but in the silent bond between a brave girl and the hero who never left her side. Strength isn't measured by how hard you hit, but by who you stand up for. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible, heartwarming stories.